How's it going, Andrew?
Hey, Matt.
Good to have you back.
I'm back, baby.
Woo! How's the kiddo?
Oh, my God. He's a tyrant.
Yep, they will be.
It's even trying to get here today. Like, you're like, I'm going to leave for like an hour and a half. It's like suddenly like the greatest adventure where you're like, what do we got to do? I got to do this. Got to take the dog out. I got to do the dishes. Got to make sure my wife's set up for success before I leave. And it's just like, you're like, I thought I was just leaving for like an errand. Mm-hmm. But now it seems like it's a huge undertaking.
It is. It changes things quite a bit, but you'll figure it out. It's good. It's good. It's a period of adjustment, but you'll get there. You guys will both get there. I have confidence.
Yeah, it definitely is a learning curve to that for sure. But yeah, I mean, we've been talking about my kids the last, my God, now I'm the one touching the cords.
Yeah, it's because you've been gone too long.
I'm rusty.
Rusty.
So, we've been talking about the kids the last couple episodes, and our topic today is going to be, kid friendly. So, I was wondering, what have you been listening to lately?
Oh, of course, I've been, listening to Further Light and got to support our fellow Wisconsin Masonic podcast. Those guys put out some good content. Some
really good education pieces. I love when they're every Wednesday when their new podcast comes out.
Yep. Always enjoy listening to that. And then lately I've been listening to a lot of, and I love the title of their podcast, That Other Masonic Podcast. No, I'm not just generally throwing out the term that there are other Masonic podcasts. That's literally the name, That Other Masonic Podcast, out of Indiana. Those guys are a bunch of fun, and actually a little teaser for our audience here. They reached out to me via TikTok, and we're probably going to do a collaboration episode with them at some point.
Oh man, I'd love that. I've been listening to them for a little while. I like, the title, The Other Masonic Podcast is super meta. I'm down for it. It's super funny. But yeah, I always like these very local podcasts with just brothers talking, because I think we talked about it earlier. It's cool to get like a little slice of life from various places throughout the country and the world about the Masonic experience and how similar we are, and how even though there's differences, it still has like a same vibe. And I think it's really cool to listen to those.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's part of the reason I try to grab like podcasts that I know are specifically from other states, like That Other Masonic Podcast, or On the Level with Fred and Chris, or even those boys at Refreshment down in Illinois.
I remember the first time I listened to On the Level with Fred and Chris, we were driving down on a road trip when we had it on. Yeah. Yep, it's a good podcast as well. Yeah, I mean, honestly, for all the newer Masons out there, or even Masons who have been Masons for a long time, if you're listening to our podcast, maybe we're your first intro into podcasts, who knows? Or maybe you're a big fan of podcasts, but Masonic podcasting has really grown in the last 5-10 years. And it's really a great way to keep some Masonry on your mind during the day. So definitely, be checking out these podcasts. They come out various days of the week, and it's great for a drive to work.
Yeah. And they all put out a lot of good content. So they're fun to listen to.
Cool. So if you get sick of listening to us, check out on the other Masonic podcasts or Further Light. Just keep your week filled with light.
Yep. Keep it going. Learn as much as you can. Always be learning.
Be a life learner. So let's kick it off. And today we're going to talk about Freemasonry and fatherhood.
Ooh.
Loosen up your ties and roll up your sleeves. It's time for fellowship with Matt and Andrew. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are not necessarily the views and opinions of the Grand Lodge of Wisconsin or any other Grand Lodge or any appended body.
So, as of recently, we're both dads now.
Yep.
And that's an interesting thing. And you're a little bit more experienced than I am. I'm a brand new daddo. And I'm sure some of our listeners, and many of them are probably even way more experienced dads. But we still thought it would be fun to try to endeavor, to the best of our ability, to try to figure out the ways that the principles of Freemasonry can be helpful for being a father.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's quite a bit to unpack there if you think about it, because and we have both those unspoken and obvious tenets or principles or stuff like that would make sense. But I think the unspoken one that we should first talk about is the concept of patience. And Masonry is very good at teaching you patience.
I think you could describe patience as a form of circumscribing your passions.
I think yeah. That would be a good way of putting it. But I know we've talked about it before, where when you think about the entire process of becoming a Freemason, it's not fast.
Or it shouldn't be.
Well, and it shouldn't be, but it's not fast, and it requires patience on the part of the candidate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Waiting for your investigation committee, waiting for all that. And so it teaches you to slow down a little bit and look at stuff, which is valuable when you want to lose it because your kid's driving you up the wall.
Tell you what, I have not had a lot of patience recently with this kid.
Well, you're also not getting a lot of sleep right now. And in the beginning, it's hard to manage both having patience and being tired all the time.
And if you think about it, like, we always say what's the line in Masonry where we talk about to benefit ourselves, our families, and our communities? You know what I'm talking about? To learn. Well, either way. So we always say, at least in Masonry, that we want to learn to improve ourselves to benefit our families and our community. Right. And I think patience, not only is it something you develop within Masonry, I think you develop it within parenting.
Oh, yeah.
And it can work in tandem. You'll find that, a lot of Masons are dads. And I think that the ones who are, you'll notice, will have, I don't want to say an empty bag of F's, but on certain things where people are kind of upset about stuff, you'll notice the dad's like, whatever, dude, whatever. I'm tired. I've dealt with kind of like, it's not a big deal. We'll get through it. And I think sometimes that comes from parenting. And I think patience is used in parenting, but also every time you're trying to circumscribe your passions is trying to not get all fired up and to find a balance and to being able to calm down, which kind of comes with temperance too.
Right.
And we talk about temperance quite a bit. And I think temperance is a form of patience as well. And, being able to find that balance between the right amount of what is important or what's healthy for your child, and then what is excess and what is finding that balance in your life and all that type of stuff too.
Well, right. Life is all about balance. And, we talk about that a lot in Freemasonry with circumscribing our passions. And that's balance, right? I mean, because I'm a big Star Wars nerd. I always look at it as the balance of the Force, the light side and the dark side.
Yep.
You need to find that happy medium between discipline and encouragement, between explanation and just saying no. Like, for right now, you have to understand that when I say no, I just mean no, and you're not going to get the reason why.
And I feel like that's a very complicated balancing act a parent has to undertake, is when are you negotiating and when are you laying down the law?
Right.
And it takes the rule of justice to know the appropriate amount of action that needs to be taken and the appropriate response. And, we talk about justice in a couple of our episodes about, the woman blindfolded holding the scales of justice, and how do you balance that scale when it comes to, disciplining your child, or even just dealing with day-to-day problems with your child. What is the appropriate response? And I think that requires a lot of contemplation and also a level head and patience to, come to the right solutions on that, which, you'll make mistakes, of course, but.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing that comes with this. Like anything else, you're not a perfect Ashler, and you never will be. And you need to make sure that when you do screw up and you screwed up, you don't continue to beat yourself up over it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nope, that was wrong. I probably shouldn't have handled it that way. Get down on yourself about it for a minute, then move on and just don't do it that way again.
You can also apologize to your kid and say, hey, I know that wasn't ideal for me either, and I'm sorry.
Right.
And, I'll work on it.
Right.
And give yourself the kindness too, to know, like, there's a lot of stuff where, especially with me right now and my family, is being like, are we doing it right? Like, are we bad parents? And there's a lot of that thought, like, am I crappy at this undertaking? Like, am I not doing enough? And I think that that's very natural.
Yep.
And I think giving yourself the kindness to be like, if it is happy and healthy, you're doing it decent enough, and you can continuously improve along the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you guys are gonna find that for the last 2.5 years now, that's pretty much all I've been doing. It has been in a constant state of doubting myself and whether or not I'm doing it right.
It's a good check and balance.
It's constant, dude. It like never stops. You're just like, I think I'm a terrible parent. I'm totally screwing this kid up.
My kid's saying the F-bomb and throwing phones across the room. What's happening?
Let's not talk about that. That phase actually ended. I don't know how, but she doesn't drop the F-bomb anymore.
I think if it's ignored, it loses its luster.
Yeah,
like
pretty much.
kids are like, that's boring. What else can I do to get attention?
In other words, now the big one's dinosaur.
Hey, I love dinosaurs. You know, I've always loved dinosaurs.
So my my dad decided to introduce her to Jurassic Park.
Awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
scary. That first one scared the heck out of me as a kid.
We've been constantly watching all 3 Jurassic Park movies at my house now.
There's a documentary that I've been watching recently. I think it's the Origins of Life on Netflix, going through all the cataclysms and through the dinosaurs. And it's reawakened the 8-year-old in Andrew being like, dinosaurs are the best again, dude. I'm all in.
Well, if you and Claire ever want to bring the kiddo over and stop on by for a visit, my daughter has some dinosaur magnetiles.
Oh,
I think 8-year-old Andrew would dig on building some trees and playing with a little magnet pterodactyl that can stick to stuff.
I was also a Lego kid when I grew up, so it's right in my wheelhouse.
Right. Those magnetiles are fun, man. I'm not going to lie.
I think it's important as an adult, too, to let your inner child come out to
Agreed.
play games again, be a kid again.
Agreed. I think we should. All right. So we exhausted patience.
I think one that I wanted to talk about, just because we've been bringing it up in the last episode, is brotherly love, or I would even subclass that to universal benevolence, which we enjoy.
Yep.
And that, I think it's important that when you are raising your child to demonstrate that universal kindness and the understanding and like creating like a nurturing environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as Masons, as we continue to work on trying to have kindness be our first response, and, we were just talking about patience. It's like, when my baby is whining for the 100th time for food, I find myself getting angry and be like, okay, come on, eat your food. But he actually gets more fussy when you do that. Whereas if you're just like, what's going on? I know you're hungry. In your heart, you're like, I'm pissed right now. But you're acting with kindness. I found that he's less fussy.
Yep. Yeah. You can kind of redirect, right? Make some goofy faces and stuff. And sometimes I'll kind of snap them out of being fussy and boom, you're rolling, they're eating, everything's good. Whereas if you react with anger, then they're going to kind of see that and then they're going to react to that rather than, smiling at you when you're got your tongue out and you're holding your eyes wide open or whatever, I think brotherly love actually, with the kid facet is a great way of looking at it with the universal benevolence and all that. But I think, at least my experience from what I remember, was that was one of the times in my life where I had never felt more love from my brothers than when I had that kid. Like, everybody was, what can I do? How can I help? Like, what do you need? Are you guys doing all right? It was almost to the point of being like too much at times.
I had so many brethren, you included, and a handful of others text me about, do you need someone to shovel? Do you need this and that? What's going on? Throughout the entire time I was in the hospital, to the point where Claire was almost in tears, being like, I can't believe that many people are reaching out.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the nice thing about the fraternity. People are concerned.
Right. And that's kind of what we do. And it goes in to speak on how big of a family this truly is with your brothers. And how, we're all here to help you through whatever you got to figure out with, and I know I have people more experienced than myself here to help me out with figuring out whatever I got to figure out with my kid.
Yeah, with the new stages, as they went through those, like your daughter is 2 almost?
2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're just 2.5 years ahead of me. So I'm going through the path that you just walked through, last 2 years.
And I mean, when you're getting that kind of love sent your way too, right? That love and that assistance and everything else, it makes it happier to then it makes it easier. Apologize there. It makes it easier to turn around and impart that love in other places. You know what I mean? Like, it's, you have this ability that now you feel loved and you have all this good stuff coming your way, and it helps keep you centered and refocus and be able to focus on giving that love in the direction it needs to be given.
Want to vomit it on someone else.
Right. Yeah, basically.
And we always talk in Masonry to lead by example. And I think living Masonically and with a Masonic morality rubs off on the kids too when they see how you interpersonally react with other people too. And I think it's important that I've been trying to remember is like kids are sponges.
Mm-hmm.
And so they will subconsciously be taking in your way of dealing with conflict, your way of interpersonal relationships, your way of how you act within the family with your wife, with your kids. They'll be absorbing some of that too. So there's a lot of onus on you to, try to put your best self forward. And I think, what we learn in Masonry, and ideally, if we are actually living up to these tenets, that has a huge impact on the well-being of a child. If you are living a moral and upright way of respect and honor, I think there's a lot of power in that too.
Well, and I think it's good for them to see, obviously, you living ethically and making the right choices and, doing all that kind of stuff, and, having a strong moral compass as to what is right or wrong. And that's something that you can impart on them, and that's something that Masonry helps us figure out. And I also think it's important for them to see the giant family that this is, to know that, if you develop the right kinds of relationships with the right kinds of people, these are the kind of experiences you can have, and you'll always know that people have your back and are there to help you. And I think that's a valuable lesson to learn early on.
And that you should have other people's backs too,
Yep.
and that you should be caring and generous with your friends and family.
Yep. And I think that's valuable to learn early on, because without a doubt, they're going to end up running into people not like that a lot
Yep.
throughout their life. And they need to remember that that is not representative of everyone, nor is it the appropriate way to handle your business.
Well, in a lot of cases, your father, your family, your mother, they are your moral compass. You're basically rating the outside on the inside. So when you're coming back, you're going, well, how would my parents react? It does set for a long time in a kid's development before they start to rebel, they, they're going to be looking for you to be like, I'm, this is a whole new experience for me. I don't have any frame of reference. And so for a long time, you're their frame of reference.
Yep.
And so you are the ethical compass. And, a lot of people put the onus on, various religions, various other things to teach morality. But I would argue that morality was always flowing through the family, not on its own. So if you're a part of a religious group that has all these moral lessons, but your parents are not acting upon them, it's not actually flowing in. It's always been the family that has been imparting their ethical values,
Right.
even if it is through the lens of their faith or even just their personal experience, whatever it might be. So it really, it falls on the family to be the ones who are setting that example for their kids.
Right. No, I agree. And, my personal views when it comes to like religion and stuff like that. And they kind of filter in with Freemasonry's views that, you should be accepting of all faiths and stuff like that. So like with my daughter, we haven't gotten her baptized yet. And as she gets old enough, obviously I'm going to start explaining deity and stuff like that. But the plan is going to be to take her to a lot of different churches and different styles and expose her to all of them to see, so she can understand that there are universal principles here, and that, maybe she can choose which one seems like the one that makes the most sense to her.
And I don't think that's unfair. At the end of the day, it's really like you want to find a well-founded faith, something that they can truly hold on to. And I know that probably is going to make some brethren maybe not always as happy because their faith's the best one. Whatever your faith is the best one to you. So great.
Yep.
Lovely. And so it's hard because there's so much fear around, like, am I going to be letting my family down if I'm not doing it the same way I was raised and all of this and stuff. But I think it takes a lot of courage to try to say you need to find a path that ultimately gives you the happiest and the best and the most moral experience for you to live an upright life.
Right. Exactly. And I think that'll also instill good lessons of acceptance and, not judging people based off of them practicing a different religion than you do.
A little less xenophobia, that they're not the other, they're just other dudes.
Right. Exactly. And I think we would all do well to remember that sometimes.
And, I think another aspect that Masonry inculcates with its members, and I would hope would pass down to the children, is the love of wisdom and learning and being a life learner and being constantly curious. Like I've been trying to think, like, do I put my kid in certain sports? How hard do I drive that argument? And I kind of, like, you want to be like, I'm going to expose to a bunch early. And then
Yep.
I like how Brother Jeff says, he's like, you're not going to be sitting around the house. You're going to have to pick a couple of things. I really don't care what they are.
Right.
You're going to be having a couple of, you better be on a sports team or a club or something, because you're not going to be sitting at home playing video games. That would be basically the hardest stance I would take. I'd be like, I don't care what it is.
Right.
You can be a Boy Scout. You can be a baseball player. You can play hockey or hurling. I don't care. But, you need to be growing and to encourage that.
Chess club.
I don't care.
Right.
Learning and being a curious and acquiring knowledge. And I think that is another way that as a Mason we can really improve our families, is constantly encouraging curiosity and encouraging more learning and being a life learner. I consider myself a life learner, and I hope that gets passed down.
Yep. I like, there's a worshipful brother out of Florida who always says ABT and ABL, always be traveling and always be learning.
I love that. ABT and ABL.
Yep.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I like it. I asked him if I could steal it at one point because I like it that much, and he's good. So we can use it every now and then. Thank you, Patrick, because I'm pretty sure you listen.
Well, and that's the important thing to remember too, is I think a lot of people sometimes feel like the school is doing all the educating. The school is taking that charge, and I think that that's fairly naive and probably not even that helpful to remember that learning doesn't stop when they come out of school, that you are, as a parent, are still in charge of encouraging learning and stuff within the household. You're not their teacher per se. You're not running through a curriculum, but to encourage that curiosity and that love of learning, I think starts and ends at home.
I would agree. And, I think it's you're taking a big risk if you just put all your faith in, regardless of whatever your views are, if you put all your faith in someone else to teach your kid, right? Like, you can't just rely on that other person to be teaching some of this stuff. You need to bring your own values and your own explanations and stuff into the mix as well. So it's only fair that, we should always be teaching and encouraging curiosity and talking about things at home outside of daycare and school and stuff like that, because you don't know what they're getting exposed to necessarily, or what this teacher is having to say, unless you're having those conversations at home.
And sure, you're not qualified. I'm not qualified to teach arithmetic. Right.
Yeah, no way.
But there's certain things that I am very knowledgeable on too, that, you might not take a course on exactly what I'm knowledgeable on, but could be directly very helpful. And so I think it's important that you do play an interactive part with your child's education. And that doesn't mean just screaming at teachers during parent-teacher conferences or whatever these parents are doing these days, or being like, I don't like what you're teaching in this school. Doesn't mean necessarily that, but it means taking an active participation in supporting your child's education and not just sitting back and saying, well, they got it.
Right. No, and that's involved parenting, right? That's how it's supposed to be done.
Yep. And I'm talking a lot because I have not practiced what I preach yet. So take that with a grain of salt. We'll see how it goes. But, I like to lay some designs on my mental trestle board of how I would ideally like to see it go. And I'm sure there's many, many parents out there being like, oh, he's got the talking part done. And I'll be like, yes, sir. I always have the talking part done.
Right. Well, I mean, but isn't it important to have these conversations now? You might not remember this specific conversation when it's applicable 5 years from now, but there's going to be something back there like, hey, wait a minute. I feel like at some point I thought about how I would handle this if I was in this situation and talked about it. Now, what? Oh, that's right. That's, I kind of remember saying I would do it like this. And maybe that I should remember that.
And I mean, that's how your point of views are developed, is through some of these conversations. You're like, this is how I think it should go. And obviously, I was reading so many baby books and I was like, God, this sounds so easy.
You read baby books?
Oh, yeah. And it's like, this sounds so easy, dude. I got this. Throw that junk out the window to a certain extent, but at least it set up some core principles and ideas to try to maintain and apply as strategies, even if it doesn't go 100% according to plan.
Right.
And, I think a lot of these better values are nice because they're so high level. It's not like, hey, make sure you use a pacifier a lot, you know what I mean? Or whatever weird thing is out there. It's like, just be an active parent, pay attention, be a teacher. I think that's high level enough that it's very achievable too.
Right. And I think, a lot of what we've been talking about goes into something else that is core to Freemasonry, which is like creating traditions, right? Rituals and traditions. Like, I mean, people always scoff at the word ritual. Ritual.
Everyone has rituals.
Everybody. Do you brush your teeth when you wake up in the morning? Do you make your bed?
Do you make a cup of coffee? Do you do a morning and night ritual? If you don't, very helpful.
Right.
Start your day right, ends your day right.
If you have a routine in the morning or at night, guess what? You have a morning and a nighttime ritual.
And if you celebrate Christmas where you open the presents at a certain time and the cookies go out and everything is set up in a very predictable way, ritual. If you have Thanksgiving always at someone's house and then someone's always in charge of the stuffing, someone's in charge of this, ritual. And I think these rituals are really cool to creating a foundational family.
I agree. And that's kind of where I was going to go with this, is that I think it's important to start creating some of those, like, we brush our teeth, then we take a bath, then we do this, then we go to bed, and all those kinds of things. And consistency in that is key, because that makes everything easier. Like, for a while there, we tried to get my daughter's bedtime earlier, right? Mm-hmm. And it was not going well. But then we like ritualized it, right? We brushed teeth and then we changed.
Read a book.
Did this and did that and, whatever. And on bath nights, we started a little bit earlier and did a bath and, and we got through it. And now she's usually out before you're done with the first book.
Because you're setting up her subconscious to read the room. Like, when this happens and this happens and this happens, I get sleepy. And you're like, yep, because it's systematic. It is the way we can basically...
It's like being
hijack the mind.
Deacon.
Yeah. Well, and think about how so many times at work around Christmas, they'll ask for a round robin or like a whip, and they'll be like, what is your family's Christmas tradition? What's unique about the way your family does it? Yep. And I've always found it interesting hearing how many different ways various families do their traditions. And I think it's very cool to, when you're a young parent like me, to try to decide what I want those traditions to be. Maybe it's I make a certain type of food every year or something that's popular, because I find that those traditions, like when we say like a Masonic event, that's a standby. It cannot go away any year. Right. People look forward to it. Yep. It's creating that unique thing that's just your family's, that they can look forward to. That's your family's ritual on various... Could be once a year we go to Florida and we always do the same thing. It doesn't matter. It's just that it's a unique thing that you guys do is really powerful.
Oh yeah. Traditions become super important, and they again speak to that like consistency, and for a kid, consistency is important.
And what's interesting, my brain is wrapping its head around. So a lot of the thought around the importance of ritual and tradition is to build strong foundations. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that in Masonry, we use ritual to build strong foundations. Yep. And so it's cool that when you start to see the foundations that are built within Masonry, that we can have brothers across the world that we feel friends with, how those same applied ideas can be applied to your family's creation of traditions to really make the family feel close and tightly bonded. And you'll meet people from families that don't have that, and you can tell where they're a little less like, it's just my dad, I don't care, I'm going to go visit him. And it's because I think there's an onus on the parent to create that strong bond. Mm-hmm. And then if you never made any effort at that, and then your kid never calls you, you can be like, did you build a strong foundation with them, or was it a little bit more lackluster? It's hard to say. I mean, that's very complicated, to be honest. But I do think it's interesting to think about that there are ways you can start to build a cement of family, to build it close together.
Well, I mean, you can look at it similar to the 3 degrees, right? You're talking entered apprentices till they're a teenager, Fellowcraft is the teenage years, maybe
To young adult.
Yeah, maybe master is like young adult.
When they're
Past masters in their 30s.
past masters, like when your kid is giving you advice.
No, actually, let me change that. I have the perfect past master is when your kid has a kid.
Yeah, that's fair. Because now when you're a grandfather, you're a past master because you're raising your second kid. You know what I mean? Like my parents are past moms, past man.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, but the parallels are, countless when it comes to this kind of stuff. And that's, and if you look at it in that manner, you are almost your kid's senior deacon.
And Freemasonry, like fatherhood, is a progressive journey of development that comes with a lot of responsibility, just like being a Freemason.
Yep.
And there are also a responsibility for moral development too, as a parent, to improve and to grow. And so the journey of being a Freemason and a father are kind of similar in the way that it is a lifelong endeavor.
Right. Exactly. And you're never done with it, right? And you should always be learning. ABL, baby. ABL.
You know how, what was that quote that we read at the past master's dinner? It's like, blessed is the lodge who is full of past masters. I think the same applies to parenting. Is blessed is the family who has active grandparents.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's another good thing to remember too, is like my dad was over last night watching the Packer game. I mean, bummer, but they was watching the Packer game and he's obsessed with this kid and he's like, son, I just think I understand little boys more than adults. And I go, Dad, that sounds really weird in weird context. But he's like, they just like you more. They're just excited to see you.
They're easier. It's just easier. I mean, yeah, my dad watches my daughter 3 days a week, that. So they've managed to form an amazing bond and it's great. I mean, it's good for him. It's good for her. It's good for all of us.
They have so much wisdom. They literally did this for many, many years.
Yeah, but you're going to notice something. The way your parent parented you and the way your parent parents your kid, their grandkid, are two completely different things. You don't even understand who that person is because they are not the same with them that they were with you.
Well, it's because they're not trapped with you. My dad's so much nicer now than when I was growing up. My God.
Yeah, exactly. And they're the same way with their grandkids. It's entertaining to watch.
Well, I know there's some cultures who their firstborn son is just immediately, or daughter is immediately sent to the grandparents and like, you're being raised by them to instill their wisdom. And then you get the second one. And I was like, that's an interesting cultural practice, but it also makes sense in a modern society to be like, yeah, you're not going to have to raise my kid full time, but to be like, it's important while your grandparents, or your parents, I should say, their grandparents are still around and able to take care, to allow them to build that relationship, because that's the generational bonds that you're creating too.
Agreed. Looking at the time, what are we feeling here?
I guess
get into some news.
Yeah, I mean, let's do some news. But before, if there's any dads out there with dad's advice, I need it. So if you feel like you have some advice for me, I'll take it.
timeforfellowship@gmail.com.
timeforfellowship@gmail.com.
Or message us on any of our socials.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Let's get into some news and events. All right, so what's been going on in Wisconsin? In District 1, the Masons in District 1 donated approximately 30 stuffed animals to the pediatric department of the Essentia Hospital in Duluth, Minnesota. The stuffed animals were donated by PetSmart and distributed by the Wisconsin Freemasons. They've been doing this for 2 years now, and Brother Peter Birkland from Landmark Lodge number 244 in Frederick has helped facilitate this, and it's very, very much appreciated. The 30 stuffed animals were also donated to Becky from St. Luke's Foundation. The animals were used for the pediatric department along with other departments, including a blood draw for children. So thank you so much to the brethren out there for doing those great works.
All right, excellent. And now on to events. If you're listening the day this episode comes out, January 25th, tonight is the Lake Lodge's annual Robert Burns dinner. And you want to know what's fun about this year, Andrew?
What's fun?
it's actually on Robert Burns' legitimate birthday.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So January 25th, 1787 or something. I feel like I looked it up. 57, I don't remember, but it's like 200 and some odd years. Yeah.
Early birthday.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So Andrew and I will be there. We're looking forward to seeing you there.
I'll be walking out with the haggis.
I'm going to be, oh yeah, you get to walk out with the haggis.
Oh yeah, I get to be in the parade.
There you go. I'm looking forward to crushing a bunch of Most Worshipful Don's haggis. I'm going to be eating a bunch of that.
I saw I posted on Facebook the picture of the haggis and my mouth's already watering.
Yep. And then on to February. On February 3rd, District 12 is holding a Masonic Day of Light at Triple I Shrine. On February 10th, James Hayes Lodge is having a crawfish boil at 1 o'clock. It's a stag event, open to Masons and non-Masons, but they have to be a man. You can RSVP in advance by reaching out to Bob Skaradinsky or Jim McGuigan from Hayes. It's $30 a ticket. I went to that last year. It's a really good time. I'll be there again this year for sure. February 17th, Waterloo Lodge is having a Valentine's Day luncheon, social hour at 11, meal at 12, $50 a couple. If you're interested, RSVP to Brother Dan Slavic. On February 24th, Waukesha Freemasons is having their 7th annual shrimp boil. Doors open at 5, dinner starts at 6. It's $30 a person. If you buy a table of 8, you're all guaranteed to have a table together, which Lake Lodge did, so there's going to be a bunch of us out there. It'd be great to see you come on out. They do have chicken as an option if you are not into the shrimp part of it. And on February 24th, there's a Masonic Acts of Kindness Gala fundraiser in Eau Claire, and you can find more details about that in the Wisconsin Masonic Journal.
Cool. Coming up in March. On March 1st, Lake Lodge number 189 is having axe throwing night. You like axes? Answer is yes. Do you like throwing them? Big time. So we're going to be doing axe throwing. It's going to be from 7 to 9 p.m. It's open to friends and family. So, come on down. It's going to be at the North-South Club, which is down in Walker's Point. Please, 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 if you're interested, RSVP with Worshipful Brother Jeff Teeley by February 16th. You can find his information online or in our lodge. Really, really fun event. It's super fun. It's a little bit competitive. We'd love to see it. We have limited number of people, so if you are interested, make sure you go, and pricing will be determined based on if we can fill up enough lanes. Usually it's about, between like 33 and 40 bucks, yep. Pretty conservatively. So the more people we get, the cheaper it gets. So if you're interested, come on down. On March 3rd, Reedsburg Lodge number 79 is doing their famous chicken pie. This is like a deep dish, all meat chicken pie. So they're basically, what they're doing is they're making these all fresh and then freezing them for curbside pickup. So there's going to be 2 days you can go. On the 3rd, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., you can go to the Reedsburg VFW, and they'll do curbside pickups there. Otherwise, they'll be doing another one, pickups on March 4th, which is going to be at the Anderson Chiropractic Clinic, which is going to be from 8 to 6 p.m. Either way, the orders are going to, all the proceeds are going to support the local high school scholarships, Boys and Girls Fund, Police, Fire, EMS, Senior Citizens. To place your order, please reach out, email masonicchicken79@gmail.com. Limited in quantity. For more pricing information, you can shoot them an email, give them a call. On March 9th, there is the Tom Torvo Interstate Table Lodge. So this is going to be at 4 p.m. and it's going to be social from then, and then at 5 p.m. they have their meal. This is at the Toma Masonic Center, so please RSVP to District Deputy Jacob R. Schultz if you'd like to attend that event. And then on March 23rd, the Valley of La Crosse Scottish Rite is having their reunion. On top of their reunion, they're having their Scottish Rite Feast of the Paschal Lamb. This is going to be from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that is events.
Excellent. Well, Andrew, it was great to have you back.
Good to be back.
I'm going to run because I got to go hit the last installation, I think, that's happening in District 12 in 35 minutes.
Well, we'll let you get out of here, and it's nice talking with everyone today. Good to be back, and until next time, see you soon. Have a good